cool new project from Photo Mentor Academy. And The Art of Seeing is a new radio drama premiering tonight on photomentorradio.com. And one of the benefits we all know about this vast new digital landscape is creating new ways to educate audiences. And in this case, it's a radio drama about struggling photographers, and especially one in particular who listens and learns on a radio journey. And certainly in an age of video everywhere, it's a refreshing take on learning the creative elements of photography. And of course, my good friend Lee Love is the producer and creator of the Photo Mentor Academy, and he's an accomplished news and magazine photographer that we all have come to love, all the work that he's done. And Lee joins me now with all the details. And so, Lee, I guess the first question I've got for you is really where was the genesis for this, and what are we in store for tonight?
Well, good evening, Jeff, and thanks very much for doing this for me. I appreciate it. It's always nice to talk to you. We always have some great conversations no matter what we're talking about. And tonight, of course, I'm really excited about this effort because it's something I've been working on a few months. And it's also very, very unique, which to me is something I always enjoy doing. Anything I can do differently or better is something that gets me excited. The idea came from my passion of teaching. I just love to try and find new ways to educate photographers. And, I think that one of the problems is photography really hasn't changed in 200 years. We still have, there's only, like I say, there's only 4 things you can really adjust on any camera. That's, aperture, shutter, ISO, and I guess focal length or focus, if you want to call it that. And so, the idea is I'm always looking for new ways to teach photography to people. And so I came up with this idea. I originally wanted to do this as an animated video, but I looked at the technology and it really kind of was a little overwhelming at the time. And so I figured, if I did this as audio, which I have a background in audio, it would make a lot more sense, and it was something I could produce now.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, you look at all the technology we've got. We know tonight we're going to talk about AI being part of what's happening here. A lot of cool creativity. And you think about all the cutting edge tech, and then you're like, wait a minute, weren't radio dramas around in like the 1930s and the 1940s? And they were. And I think that there's a good argument for those that could, if they're even old enough to be alive today, would argue that there was something about the way the radio dramas portrayed life where you're hearing it in your mind instead of seeing it, and it's not spoon-fed to you. And so, I guess to that end, before we get into the really cool part of our conversation, I really wanted to start with, you've been in this a long time, and I know that you've got a heart to really help people, but tell me about your passion for photography specifically in exploring creativity, even in the midst of what we see now is a plethora of photographers. Everybody's got an iPhone. Everybody wants to take a great photo. But how many photos are really memorable, right? And so what does it take to make a memorable photo?
Well, that's $1 million question, of course. And I think, there's a lot of ways I could answer that. First of all, let me address the issue of the radio part and the audio part. The thing I love about doing this as a radio or an audio drama is you have to fill in the pictures with what's in your head, right, as you mentioned, which is great because that's what photography is all about. I am a very, I have this program I teach called S.T.E.P.S, Seeing, Telling, Exposing, Processing, Success, and the S stands for seeing, which is learning to see. So it's a very, very big part of this. The audio part is great because it really forces you to picture in your mind what's going on, not be, as you said, spoon-fed through video. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, I think that what it takes to be a great photographer is emotion. So yes. You really, look, I've been doing this a long time, 30 plus years. And what I've learned is that no one buys technology. They don't care about ISO. They don't care about shutter speed. I've never had one client ask me what kind of camera I used, any of that kind of. They want to know how I'm going to get their message across, how I'm going to convey what they're trying to do, and how do I really generate an emotion or a reaction from the audience. That's what people want. And when you look at your own photos, or own family photos, you look at some, you know, they're probably snapshots, but the ones that really are meaningful to you, maybe snapshots, but they're emotion. You look at them and go, oh man, it brings up something in you, right? It's something like, oh wow, look at that. That's my mom. I remember my mom. I remember exactly what was happening at this point. And so that's what makes a great photo. And I think we've gotten away from that with all this technology. People are now, I spend a lot of time on these Facebook groups and forums, and they're always talking about shooting on manual, and you got to do this, and people ask for critiques, and all the critiques are, oh, it's soft, it's this, it's that. They're all technical. There's nothing creative, no composition, no why did you photograph this image? What were you trying to say with the image? And to me, that's what makes a great photo.
I think that's a really cool way to start the conversation, because you're right about that. Creativity is kind of the lost art in the background when we're at a place where we are today, with so much availability of being able to take a photo in a moment, and it's really become commoditized in a lot of ways, and the creativity is not even thought about, I think, in a lot of ways anymore. And this radio drama, is really something, and I know you've put a lot of work into it. And why don't you tell us about MacKenzie and her journey to being a more confident and capable photographer in this radio drama?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because so for me, MacKenzie represents one of my students. I mentor people from, Australia to Romania, and I have some really good friends I've met, and I listen to what their struggles are, and I ask them, what is it you're dealing with? What problems do you have? And as I thought through that, and I think about these people that I consider friends, I've tried to put that in these stories. I've tried to bring those forward so that other photographers could benefit from it. So MacKenzie, to me, was just one sample. The concept is she's from the Midwest. She's a young woman. She's striving to become a professional photographer. But one of the most important things about her is she's not technically astute. That's not her skill. Her sweet spot. She's very creative. And I find a lot of new photographers are like that. They just want to create. When I ask them what they love about photography, they say, oh, I love the creativity. It drives them. It's their passion. And so I wanted to make MacKenzie a character that was like that was not necessarily super technical. And also, in fact, as this story evolves, because we're only on episode 1, but there's a whole storyline that's going to go on here that I've already got in my head and been writing, where there's her antagonist, which is JD, and he's a super technical guy. He's the typical guy you run into on these forums and groups, and he's the one that kind of and he doesn't like her because she's all creativity, right side of the brain, he's very left side of the brain, and so there's a conflict there. And so that's the one thing about MacKenzie I would bring. There's a lot more, but the one thing I'd bring up is that she wants to make it as a photographer. She started young. Her grandfather gave her a Minolta film camera that she started shooting with, and she fell in love with it. And so she's an artist first and foremost.
And it's also one of these things too, Lee, where because I've heard some of it here in a couple minutes. We're going to hear some of this as well. It's one of these things too where MacKenzie in this story is not stumbling so much upon the learning, but there is learning everywhere. And one of the things I really appreciate about what you teach is being able to see creatively. We've talked about, one of these exercises, going out and, looking for the alphabet, shapes of letters and everyday objects, and exercises like that to get you to begin to understand that it's really more, as you say, more than the shutter speed and the aperture and the ISO and the focal length and things like that. And MacKenzie kind of is because of her pursuit of wanting to learn, that learning actually becomes visible to her, but it's around her everywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing. That's why I don't pick on too much technical. And people give me, I do once a month on the first Tuesday of every month, I do photo reviews here on YouTube. And for me, there are two things I don't dwell on. One is the technical, unless they ask me, and the second one is the color or the editing or the toning. And the reason is not that that's so subjective. They are subjective, but the point is they're the easiest to fix.
That's right.
An image that's overexposed or a little soft is simply changing a dial, hitting a button. So it's not, and it's also, frankly, while it's overwhelming, I understand it's overwhelming for new photographers, it's also the easiest thing for me to teach. It's either black or white. It's either this or that. It's not that hard at all to understand and to get that across. What is difficult to teach is creativity, how you learn to see. And the reason is this, Jeff. We are all different. We are all unique. Right. You see differently than I do, not physically, but in your own head. And so we can be standing next to each other with the same camera, same equipment, everything, and our pictures are going to look very different. And that's my whole passion, is trying to help somebody to get in touch with that. Get in touch with that creativity and that passion inside of them, whatever that may be, and to figure out what that is. We are all made up of our own background, what music we listen to, what movies we like, how we were raised, where we were raised, all that kind of stuff. And that makes us unique and makes your pictures unique and different than mine. So one of the things I was thinking about this the other day, because someone was asking a question, and they were asking, how did they get into this industry? And my answer was, I can tell you, but you know what? Your journey is going to be very, very different than mine. We're never going to have the same path. It's the same thing with photography. I like to use music as an example, by the way. Look, music, is Lady Gaga better than the Rolling Stones? No, we have a different, you may like one or the other. That doesn't make one better than the other, it just makes them different. And it's the same thing with photography or imagery or art. Now, the biggest mistake, without getting too much here, the biggest mistake is people they just say, oh, it's just arbitrary, it's just whatever you like is different than what I like. Yes, but there's a set of rules, there's a set of guidelines called composition, there's things called the 7 elements of art. And one of the things I use in it as an analogy is I take a famous speech, and I move all the words around. Exact same speech. And I put them on the screen. I say, what does this mean? And then I show them that versus what it looks like as the real. And the point is, if you don't understand grammar, if you don't understand punctuation, if you don't understand, then the words don't mean anything. They're just words. And it's the same thing with photography, because people just go out and they shoot, and if they don't understand the language, what I call the visual grammar, then they're not conveying anything. Anyway, that's a long answer to a short question.
But that is a really cool answer. And the one word that I came away out of all of that, believe it or not, was the word artistry. I wonder how many photographers, a lot, and this because we've all been behind a camera. Whether you're in video, whether you're a photographer, I am a photographer. But how many people, or what would it do if they began seeing themselves as, I'm an artist? That kind of thing, because the thinking is very different from the mechanical and the mechanics of capturing an image. And yes, you can play with depth of field. You can have something blurry in the foreground and there in the distant background. You can be creative that way. But artistry is more than that, right?
Yes. In fact, that's one. I'm glad you brought that up, because you sort of touched on it earlier. That's what I love about the phone. And people trash the phone because, oh, it's not a real camera. Well, yes, it's not a quote-unquote real camera, but you know what? I've had so many students ask me, Lee, why is it my smartphone photos are better than my DSLR? And the answer is so simple. It completely takes away the technical barrier. You're now worried about the subject and focused on the subject and the image, right. Not the dials, not the buttons, not the depth of field, not all that stuff you're talking about. And so therefore, it's a great learning tool. I encourage people, start using your phone, or even, you don't even have a phone, frankly. I teach you to learn to see without even a phone. I'm always taking pictures right up here, whether I ever have any equipment with me or not. That's the secret, is to learn to see first, and then to recognize, well, that's an interesting image. Oh, look how the light falls there. Wow, look at it. It looks differently than it did at 8 o'clock than it did at noon, doesn't it? Why is that? Where's that light coming from? What's the direction? The more you learn about that kind of stuff, that's what I call learning to see, the better photographer you will be.
Yeah, and I think a lot about photography in general. When you look at national events or moments in history, whether it goes all the way back to the things that happened with the president, with John F. Kennedy, or other things, with other big stories, and there are hundreds of photographers around somebody. It could be a peace treaty or something, and yet one photo will stand out among everybody's, and everybody had the same lighting. They had basically the same lens and those things. And I know we're harping on it a little bit, but the reason why I think this radio drama is going to be really valuable for a lot of people is that I don't think that many photographers have exercised their artistry muscle. And Lee, tell me about this, because this radio drama it really contains three elements, right? It's entertaining, and there is education built into the storyline. And then there's this whole other conversation we're going to have about really the unique technology and the AI that's behind a lot of this to really put it together.
Yeah, so I didn't want to just do a radio drama. I wanted to do something different. I'm a teacher. I'm passionate about getting people excited about photography and learning their art. So I thought, okay, the radio part is easy for me. I've got a background in television. I've got a background in radio. I've got a background in engineering, studio engineering. So what else can I do? And I started thinking, the cool thing would be to make it fun and entertaining and compelling. People want to listen to it every week, but then also slip in a little bit of education subtly. So each episode has a little twist to it, a little story, a little, educational part. Like on episode 1, you're going to hear that MacKenzie is having trouble with lighting. And that's a lot of people have trouble with lighting. That's probably the fourth or fifth thing I see people have the biggest issue with, third, fourth, or fifth. And so she does as well. And so she has to call her grandfather, as you're going to hear, and get some tips on this. And so I wanted to incorporate that. So there'll be more and more and more as I go on and on. It'll be subtle. I'm not going to beat anybody over the head with it, but I wanted to include an education. And I think that's probably the second or third thing that makes this a very, very unique program. Number one, it's oriented toward photographers. I don't know anybody doing an audio or radio drama just for photographers. Number two, it's entertaining. I mean, there's a great storyline. I think you've heard it. I think you're gonna find. I think people are gonna really enjoy it. I've had a lot of fun making it fun. And the third thing is that educational element. There's that piece in there, again, I think also makes it unique. Nobody is doing that. And so that's also the thing that gets me excited about this.
And then there's the technology behind it.
Yeah, so the technology, okay, so you know me, and you know that I love technology, right, and you know that I explore technology. To me, technology is something I always look as a tool. And so I'm always... One of my attributes, if you want to call that, is that I will explore technology, I'll see new technology, I'll learn about it, and then I kind of put it aside on this shelf. So, this is interesting. How's this work? And I think I showed you a picture I did years ago. I did of a photo of a guy at a Comic-Con. And he was a warrior, and I said, well, what do they do? And he says, oh, we live in the mountains, and we're warriors. So I took and learned 3D CGI graphics, because I couldn't find a photo, to create the mountains and the snow in the background. And that was my way of exploring how does this CGI stuff work, and could it be used for photography. The same thing is here. As I'm looking at what's going on right now, especially with this AI, it's just amazing. One of the things that I'm most interested in, there's a lot of it, but one of them is this concept of this technology called text-to-speech. It's getting better and better and better. And I would say the interesting thing is today it's the worst it's going to ever be. It's only going to get better. And I know you've experimented with it a little bit as well, and it's just phenomenal what you can do, both either pre-made voices or also the ability to sample and clone other voices and reuse them. So so I looked at that and I said, well, this makes this doable, because if I were to have to find 5, 6, 7 voice actors to do this, number one, it'd be very expensive. I probably couldn't afford it. And number two, the time it would take to do this is very complicated and time consuming. So this technology has allowed me to use text-to-speech to create all the characters in this radio drama.
And there's also something really unique, because you're honoring a friend who passed away a few years ago, and you've sampled his voice, and he's part of this whole journey.
Yeah, that's kind of a little hidden nugget that I really haven't revealed yet. Not that I'm hiding it, but the thing is, I had a friend, and those of you who have been following me know I have this friend, Frank Ruggles. Frank was an amazing landscape photographer. He worked for the Park Service. He just was a dear, dear friend. He and I have known each other for 15 years or so. And we would always encourage each other, and we worked together for a number of years. Anyway, so I wanted to, so in this radio drama, there's a character called Frank, and he's a mentor. He helps young photographers. And instead of using my character, my persona, I wanted to use Frank's. And the reason is because to honor him is a way to, show his, and kind of have him live on. And so that will be revealed later on. In this first episode, I'll give you a couple of Easter eggs. It's mentioned twice that there's two people that are photographers in this thing. One is mentioned by Jasmine, who you'll hear. She works in the Coffee Bean coffee shop. And the other one is Henry, who is MacKenzie's grandfather. And he'll also mention that he has a friend that's a photographer that can help people. Well, that is Frank. I just haven't revealed the name yet. I don't want to put too much. I'm going to try and drag it out a little bit. I want to develop the story. I wanted people to connect to MacKenzie first. But that will also be something that's revealed later on, is this character named Frank, who is a way of honoring my friend Frank Ruggles.
Yes. And you know what I'm realizing too, Lee, is that in building it that way, and even just beyond it being this overwhelming amount of training, you and I both build online training. We're working on projects and things along those lines. And I was reading something in the Kajabi community yesterday where people were saying, what was the most amount of money that people spent trying to learn something, and yet they never logged in?
Oh, I saw that.
One person actually said, I spent $15,000 and I never logged in.
Yeah.
And someone had a really great saying, and they said, look, there's that excitement when you realize this is for you. You can actually grow yourself. You make an investment, and then there's that thing of, oh my gosh, can I really do this? And you need more coaching. Well, yeah, and the thing that I think is really amazing about this unique approach to education is that it's the entertainment is first. It is a story. And by listening to a story that's not of, hey, let me tell you the 10 tips to how you're going to be a great photographer, we're going to do it, right? It's basically the pressure goes away, and you can really just kind of lay back. And the cool thing about it, I think, best is that I think a lot of us believe that we have to learn 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 things to be leveled up to that person that we think is above us on the totem pole. And everybody who knows me knows my whole mantra is there's no such thing as a totem pole. There's frequency where people like your radio station or mine and that kind of thing. So this, I think, is really good because less is more in so many ways. And if I'm not mistaken, you're going to play some of this for us.
Yeah, so one of the things we'll do tonight here before we're done is I want to give you guys some backstory to this. That's the whole purpose by doing it. It's easy. I could have easily just launched this and you can play it whenever you want. And what we're going to do is I'll play it for you tonight. It's you'll hear the whole thing. It's only 10 minutes, so it's not very long. I didn't want it to make this overwhelming 30, 40-minute, show. I wanted to make them short and sweet so you can listen to them while you're washing dishes or driving or whatever. And there'll be multiple, multiple episodes, one a week, hopefully. But and I love podcasts. I listen to dozens of different podcasts about. If I get interested in something, a topic, the first thing I do is there's a podcast on it, because I can go on a walk, put my earbuds on. I can go to the grocery store, have my earbuds on, and listen to these things. And it's a great way to do two things at once. And that was my idea behind this. You can be entertained. You can enjoy MacKenzie and her travels and the characters that are surround her. And you can learn a little something and have a little fun. And that was my whole goal behind this.
I think that's amazing. And it's certainly with the AI technologies you alluded to, that the story's only going to get better as the technology gets better, as new adventures sprout, because there'll be new people introduced in this journey as it goes and moves from there. Is there anything else that you think that the audience should really focus on in terms of what you're launching tonight?
That's a good question. Well, I think the only thing I can think of off the top of my head is, remember, this is episode 1. And so you know me, Jeff, I'm already at episode 6 in my head. I mean, that's just the way I work. I've already telling you about some things I'm working on that are way out there. So this is just the beginning, and there's a lot more going to happen here. And it's, like I said, I've got a bunch of, MacKenzie has a boyfriend. She has a roommate she's had from in school she met years ago. All these intertwined characters. So it's going to get very interesting. Very cool. I would say the one thing, this is something I don't want to forget about. Let me mention this. I am deadly serious. I want to hear from you. I want to know what experiences you've had. I don't care what they are. Whether someone loved your work, whether someone hated your work, whether you tried something, it didn't work, because it's important. Look, I have a lot of experience, and I have a lot of experience I've gained from the people that I mentor, but I want new. So I want to hear what your experiences are so that I can put them into these stories. I won't use the names or anything like that, but I want to be inspired by what you think I should be talking about and the things that are important to you. This is all about them, the people listening, the audience, not about me. And so that's important to me, that I get feedback and go, hey, this happened to me. I had a customer, I posted their images on Instagram and they didn't like them. Whatever it may be, I want to have those stories that other people are having as part of this. So that's very, very important to me.
I think that's a great way to lead into this. It's funny because when you talk about like stories and things, I don't know how many people heard about it in the photography world, but there was a story a couple years ago of a stock photo that was taken of a family that ended up on made vastly huge on the side of a supermarket. And this family was traveling, others like Norway or something, and they're like, why are we on a grocery store here? And so, these stories, I think, people are going to be able to share their experience, good and bad, give you some new ideas on maybe where the direction of these things should go. But at the end of the day, this is a two-way conversation. And so if you're listening, and as you listen, make sure you're staying in touch with Lee and share what you're thinking and help him along the way, because there's a journey here for you as well, right?
Absolutely. I tell people that we're not in the photography business. They're like, what? My joke is, what are you smoking, Lee? Like, no, we're not in the photography. Canon, Nikon, Sony, those people are in the photography business. We are in the service business. Our job is to provide service, which means memories. And there's so many. There's, like you have the story about the people in Norway. I've also heard stories about people that have had their photographs of family or grandfathers, and they passed away, and it was the only photo they had of that person, and they just loved it. They adored it. It meant so much to them. That is what's important. That's why we do what we do. It's not about the bokeh or any of that other stuff, but we tend to lose sight of that. So that's why it's important to me that we get in touch with our creativity and we get in touch with the ability to tell stories.
Well, and I think that's a great way to lead into hearing the new chapter premiering tonight on photomentorradio.com, and this is The Art of Seeing from Lee Love.
Welcome to The Art of Seeing, the story of a young photographer named MacKenzie who is navigating the competitive and challenging world of photography. In today's episode, we meet MacKenzie as she struggles to find her footing and prove herself in the industry. Episode 1, The Portfolio.
Why does this look so different from what I had in mind? I don't get it. The lighting is too flat and the stupid texture of this outfit is not right. Why does this have to be so hard?
MacKenzie is shooting new images for her portfolio to help land a new client, Ella Fashions, a small local clothing designer who creates boutique fashion for young women. As much as MacKenzie is an artist, she struggles with the technical aspects of photography, especially lighting.
Okay, let's do this. Focus, girl. You got this.
MacKenzie tries different angles and lighting setups, but she can't seem to get it right. After hours of trying, she takes a break.
This is going to drive me crazy. I've got to get out of here. I need some fresh air. Ooh, a cup of tea would be great.
Hey, Mac.
Hi, Jazz. Looks busy today.
Yeah, a little slammed today. Sorry. Do you want the usual?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks. Hello?
Hello, this is Ella Montgomery, and I'm looking for MacKenzie with Artistic Vision Photography.
Oh, yes. Hello, Miss Montgomery. This is MacKenzie.
Oh, posh, call me Ella.
Oh, yes, Ella.
One of my customers recommended you and can't say enough about your work. Is there any chance you can schedule me in for Wednesday at 1 o'clock? I'd love for you to take a look at what I have in mind. And then, I'd love to hear your suggestions.
Ella, yes, of course. I would love that. Let me check my schedule. Yes, I can make that work. Oh, sure, 1 o'clock. Got it.
Brilliant. I'll send you a quick email confirming the meeting and address.
I look forward to meeting you, Miss Montgomery.
Ella, dear.
Oh, yes, Ella.
MacKenzie can't believe her ears. Ella Fashions wants to meet her. This could be the big break she's been waiting for.
Wow, I can't believe Ella Montgomery called me.
Hey, Mac, here's your tea. Are you all right? What is with the goofy grin?
I got a call for a great photo gig. I don't want to jinx it, but I can't believe it. I've been shooting her designs for my portfolio and was going to approach her. And out of the blue, she calls me.
Oh, wow. Hey, once she sees your work and meets you, I know she'll love you.
Thanks, Jazz. I wish I was as confident as you are. By the way, when I came in, I noticed some new photos on the walls. Where did these amazing landscapes come from? They're absolutely wonderful.
Oh, yeah, that's my uncle's. He's a great photographer. I love his work.
Wait, these were shot by your uncle? Wow, you mentioned he was into photography, but I had no idea. He is really good.
He doesn't like it when I brag on him. I know you wouldn't do this, but when I tell my friends he is a photographer, the question they ask is,
Let me guess, I bet they ask. Does he do weddings?
exactly. You know, I'm surprised you haven't run into him. He's in and out of here all the time.
Jazz, I thought you were my friend. Girl, you are holding out on me. Your uncle is a frickin' professional photographer.
I thought you knew.
MacKenzie can't believe Jasmine's uncle is a photographer. First, a call from Ella Montgomery, and now this.
Thanks, Jazz. Talk to you later. I definitely need to put this in my journal. I can't wait to tell Kim.
Before the phone call, MacKenzie's new images were to enhance her portfolio, but now...
I'm grateful that Pop gave me these older Novatron strobes. But as soon as I land a decent job, my lighting setup is the first thing I need to upgrade. That, and find someone to teach me lighting. I need to rethink this lighting setup. Oh, Mac, you idiot. Of course. Mac, you are such a bozo. I can't believe you.
Hello?
Hi, Pop Pop, it's Mac. How are you feeling?
Hey, Mac, I'm doing all right, I guess. What is wrong? Are you okay? Wait, it's not my birthday, is it? Are you in trouble?
No, I am fine. You are so silly. And no, it's not your birthday. Can a granddaughter call her grandfather just to say hi?
Okay, don't give me that. What's up? Spit it out.
All right. This is why I love you. You know me so well. I need to shoot this beautiful white poet blouse. But no matter what I try, it just looks flat. I'm trying to show off the texture of the material. I'm using the strobes you gave me and a 36-inch softbox. Pop Pop. This is important, and I am so frustrated.
Mac, for heaven's sakes, don't you know I don't have a clue what a poet blouse is? But if it's light and help, then I got you covered.
Oh, Pop Pop, remember that episode of Seinfeld with the puffy shirt?
Okay, whatever. First remember what I taught you. What is it that makes a soft light, and what does a large, diffused, soft light do to shadows?
You are so bad. I should known this was going to be a test.
I know you know this stuff. I know you. And you let this techno stuff overwhelm you. Think about it for a second.
Okay, you're right. Let's see. The larger the light source is in comparison to the subject, the softer the light. Is that right?
Good. Now, what did I teach you? There are only two basic types of light, hard and soft, right? And if you want to show texture in something, you use hard light. Think about the lighting lessons we did from the hen house.
Oh yeah, the eggs from the hen house. That's right. Lighting them from the side with a smaller light showed the texture and darker shadows. See, I knew you would have the answer.
I love you too, baby girl. Is that it? Anything else?
No, as usual, you know all the answers.
Well, I don't know about all that. This old man is not as sharp as he used to be. I keep wanting to give you my buddy's phone number. He is a really good photographer. And if I remember right, mentors, photographers, he might be able to help you out. I have his number here somewhere in all of this mess. After my Lucy died, I can't find a damn thing in this house.
Pop Pop, you know I love you, but you couldn't even find your keys when Grandma Ma was around, right?
Yeah, whatever. When are you going to come see me? I am not getting any younger.
Don't worry, I will be knocking on your door before you know it so we can go dancing. By Pop Pop, I love you.
I love you too, and stay out of trouble.
With help from her grandfather, she is motivated to create something she will be excited to show Ella Montgomery.
Now I am finally getting somewhere. Okay, this is starting to look like what I had in my head.
As MacKenzie prepares for her meeting with Ella, she can't help but wonder what they will discuss and if she can actually land the job. Will MacKenzie land this gig, or will her lack of confidence and technical expertise work against her? What challenges will she face in the world of fashion photography? Don't miss episode 2. Find out if MacKenzie has what it takes to make it as a professional photographer. Or will this be the shot that ruins her career and sends her packing back to Ohio in embarrassment?
We have reached the end of episode 1 of The Art of Seeing, created by Lee Love, who brings his invaluable experience as a commercial and editorial photographer to the show. Each story featured in this series is inspired by real-world situations encountered throughout Lee's illustrious career and the photographers he is honored to mentor. Today's episode was masterfully crafted by Sue-Ann Bubach and Lee Love. As we conclude this episode of Photo Mentor Radio, we would like to remind our listeners that The Art of Seeing is copyrighted by Lee Love Productions. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. All characters and incidents portrayed and the names herein are fictitious, and any similarity to the name, character, or history of any person is entirely coincidental and unintentional. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to join us next time for more captivating stories from the world of photography on The Art of Seeing. Until then, keep exploring the beauty that surrounds you through the lens of your camera. And remember, if you want your photography to touch more people, then forget about learning to take better photos, and instead learn to tell better stories through the visual language of art.
Wow, Lee, that is amazing. I think that is going to hit a home run in so many different areas for people, and especially that last sentence about being able to see with art instead of the mechanics of what we think might make a great photo. If you are interested in this, remember that it debuts tonight on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can hear it at photomentorradio.com. And Lee, any final thoughts on this debut tonight?
No, I get really emotional about it because I'm very excited about it. I think it's when I listen to the story, and I just love it. The grandfather sounds so realistic to me, and the things he would say to a granddaughter, yes. And I just love that about what we're doing here, and I think I'm excited about it. What can I say? I really am enjoying working on it, and I hope people enjoy as much as I do.
And buddy, I tell you, I think this is the superb way to reach people in a world that is overloaded with 3 tips to this and 5 steps to that. And those things are really important, and they are part of a more formal training. But this is a situation where you're going to learn, I think, through the life of MacKenzie, how to look at someone's life instead of how to looking at your lens, and not make it inward focused but outward focused. And congratulations. I think this is going to be just a bellwether for training struggling photographers who are trying to figure out the knobs and buttons and may one day realize that those buttons are not where the problem lies, but it's really in how you're looking at the picture in your mind first, and you create that scene, and you take those memorable photos. Lee, it's been an honor to help debut this. I appreciate you letting me sit in the host chair tonight. And remember, everybody, share your experience and your feedback with Lee on this journey as these stories and episodes begin to take shape, and they will speak to your life, and that story may be in there and you'll recognize it, but it will take a turn and a twist. And I think everybody's going to find that there's going to be some value in here for them, no matter where you are, whether you're 4 days in or like me, 40 years in media. But Lee, congratulations one more time. And again, it is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, photomentorradio.com. And so with that, Lee, I will just say on your behalf, thanks for joining me on your own show, and I'm sitting in for you. But it's been an honor. And for everybody, remember that to take a great photograph, it starts with the art of seeing. And until next time, I'm Jeff Fitzgerald in for Lee Love, and I will see you soon.
you